Do you know what wet food actually does to your cat when they eat it every single day? Most owners think it's just a better meal, but what's really going on inside their body is something most people have no idea about. It changes how their organs function, how they feel, even how they act around you. What starts happening might completely change the way you feed your cat. Here's what kicks in from day one. 1. Their body finally gets the water it needs. Have you ever wondered why your cat barely touches their water bowl? It's not laziness, and it's not them being picky. It's simply instinct. Cats evolved as desert hunters. Their ancestors got almost all of their hydration from the prey they caught. Their thirst drive is naturally low because their bodies were never designed to drink water on the side. That's how they survived in the wild. But here's the problem. Most house cats eat dry kibble, which contains around 10% moisture. Compare that to wet food, which sits between 75% and 80%. That's almost the exact moisture content of a mouse or a small bird. So when you start feeding wet food daily, something shifts fast. Their hydration levels jump. Their kidneys don't have to work overtime filtering concentrated waste. Their urine becomes more diluted, which lowers the risk of crystals and urinary blockages, one of the most common emergencies in cats, especially males. A study published in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery found that cats fed wet food produce significantly more urine volume with lower concentration, which is exactly what a healthy urinary system needs. Your cat won't dramatically start drinking less water, but their body finally stops running on empty. And honestly, this is the change that makes everything else on this list possible. But stay with me until the last one, because there's a side to daily wet food that can quietly backfire if you're not paying attention. 2. Their weight shifts in a way you won't expect. Why do so many indoor cats struggle with weight, even when their owners aren't overfeeding them? It's not because cats are lazy, it's because of what's in the bowl. Dry kibble is packed with carbohydrates. Some brands contain 40% or more. And cats, as obligate carnivores, have almost no biological use for that. Their bodies aren't efficient at processing carbs for energy, so most of it gets stored as fat. It's not a willpower problem, it's a food design problem. When you switch to daily wet food, the equation changes. Wet food is naturally higher in protein, higher in moisture, and significantly lower in carbs. That combination does something simple but powerful. It lets your cat feel full on fewer calories without you having to measure every gram. A study from the Waltham Center for Pet Nutrition found that cats fed wet food were more likely to maintain a lean body composition compared to those on dry diets, even when allowed to eat freely. That's because protein triggers a stronger satiety response than carbs do. Your cat actually feels satisfied instead of constantly searching for more. So if your cat has been carrying an extra weight and nothing seems to work, it might not be about how much you're feeding, it might be about what you're feeding. And hey, if this is changing the way you think about feeding your cat, take a second to hit like and subscribe. It helps us get this to more people who want the best for their cats, not just the most convenient. 3. Their coat tells the truth before anything else. Ever notice how some cats have that soft, glossy coat that almost looks unreal, while others feel dry and rough no matter how much you brush them? What if that had almost nothing to do with grooming? Your cat's coat is one of the most honest indicators of what's going on inside their body. When nutrition is off, the coat is the first thing to show it. Dull fur, excessive shedding, flaky skin, these aren't cosmetic problems, they're signals. Wet food is naturally rich in animal-based proteins and natural animal fats, the two building blocks that skin and fur depend on the most. Dry kibble, even the high-quality kind, goes through intense processing that breaks down a lot of those nutrients before they ever reach your cat's system. When you switch to daily wet food, most owners start noticing the coat change within a few weeks. The fur gets softer, the shedding slows, that greasy or dusty texture some cats carry starts to disappear. It's one of the first visible signs that something deeper is improving. Research published in the Journal of Nutritional Science showed that cats on high-protein, moisture-rich diets displayed improved coat quality and skin health compared to those on dry alternatives. The body stops rationing nutrients for survival and starts putting them where they belong. So if your cat has tried every brush, every supplement, and every shampoo, and your cat's coat still looks off, the answer might already be sitting in the wet food aisle. 4. Their behavior around food changes completely. Does your cat start screaming the second you walk toward the kitchen? Do they inhale their food like someone's about to steal it? Most owners assume that's just personality, but what if your cat isn't greedy? What if they're just never actually satisfied? Cats that eat dry food often develop frantic eating habits, and it's not because they love food more than other cats. It's because kibble doesn't send the right fullness signals to their brain. The high-carb, low-moisture content digests fast and leaves them feeling empty within hours. So they beg, they pace, they wake you up at 4 a.m. because their body keeps telling them something is missing. When you start feeding wet food daily, that cycle starts to break. The higher protein content triggers a real satiety response. The moisture adds volume to the meal, which physically stretches the stomach just enough to activate those "I'm done" signals. A study in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior actually confirmed this. Cats fed high-protein diets showed reduced food-seeking behavior and were less likely to show signs of frustration between meals. Your cat eats, feels full, and actually walks away. Now, to be fair, not all frantic eating comes down to food type alone. Some cats develop speed eating as a behavioral habit, especially in multi-cat homes or cats with a stressful past. In those cases, wet food helps, but pairing it with something like a food puzzle can make a real difference. It slows them down and taps into their natural foraging instincts, which is exactly how their brains were wired to eat in the first place. Once both sides are working together, the shift is hard to miss. Cats that feel consistently satisfied become calmer around food in general. The guarding stops, the desperation fades. Mealtime goes from chaotic to quiet. 5. The one risk most owners never think about. So if wet food does all of this, why would there be a downside? This is the part I mentioned earlier, the one that can quietly backfire if you're not paying attention. Most owners open a can, scoop it into the bowl, and walk away. Makes sense, right? But wet food doesn't behave like kibble. Kibble can sit out all day without much changing. Wet food can't. The moment it hits room temperature, bacteria start multiplying. And depending on how warm your home is, that window can be as short as 2 hours. Cats that graze throughout the day are especially at risk. If your cat likes to eat a little, walk away, and come back later, that second visit might not be safe anymore. The food may look the same, it may even smell fine to you, but bacterial growth doesn't announce itself. The safe rule is simple. Never leave wet food out for more than 2 hours. If your cat hasn't finished it by then, toss it. And any unused portion from the can should be covered and refrigerated immediately. Even then, it should be used within 48 hours. One more thing most owners miss. Serving wet food straight from the fridge isn't great either. Cats are drawn to food that's closer to body temperature because it mimics fresh prey. A few seconds in the microwave or a splash of warm water brings it to the right range and makes it more appealing. This isn't a reason to avoid wet food. Everything we covered in this video still holds, but the difference between wet food helping your cat and quietly causing problems comes down to how you handle it after you open the can. Get that part right, and you're giving your cat exactly what their body was designed for.